Who didn't watch Power Rangers as a kid? Maybe somebody out there didn't, especially if you weren't in the right age range. But if you were, come on, where were you? I can remember watching the show on Saturdays and then coming back to school on Monday only to hear everybody in class talking about it and acting it out. I had the activity book and the VHS tapes, my friends had the t-shirts and the toys, kids on Halloween all wanted to be a Power Ranger. It was a complete phenomenon, and America had never seen anything quite like it. The show received overnight success and continued for season after season, still seeing success today. But what was it about it that caught our attention? Does it even still hold up now? And where did we get this zany idea for a bunch of transforming, butt-kicking teenagers with attitude? 16 years ago, in 1993, American television was graced with its first images of the live-action TV series Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, presented by production company Saban Entertainment, and originally airing on Fox Kids on Saturday mornings, back in the peak of the Saturday morning cartoon era. The premise starts out sounding unoriginal. A team of teenage kids, or more precisely in the words of the great Zordon, fighting teenagers with attitude, are especially chosen to help save the world from evil. Sounds like a typical cut-and-paste formula for most TV shows at the time aimed at that age group. But what made these kids unique, however, is that they had fast-paced, realistic martial arts fighting styles, and that they were given special morphing medallions, giving them the ability to transform, or morph, into the Power Rangers, each with their own colors, weapons, and special mechs called Zords. How could they possibly keep this up while trying to lead normal high school teenage lives? The original cast consisted of Austin St. John as Jason, the Red Ranger and original leader of the group, big and muscly and good for saying lines, not necessarily acting them.
Martial arts was not developed to hurt others.
Walter Jones played Zack, the Black Ranger. Yeah, we all know the black joke with this, I'm not gonna exacerbate it. To this day, I'm not certain if he ever actually knew how to fight. It just kinda seemed like he was chosen to hip-hop dance for Alpha 5's amusement. David Yost played Billy, the Blue Ranger, who I surprisingly found most of my friends wanted to be the most. Not Tommy or Jason, but Billy. I think that's because all the kids who watched Power Rangers considered themselves the social geeks and found something familiar in Billy.
I don't know if I've got what it takes.
Trainee, the Yellow Ranger, was portrayed by the late Thuy Trong. No, I'm not going to get too hard into the race jokes here either. She was often needed to translate Billy's technobabble, of which there were a few too many uncomfortable moments.
I'm intrigued by the rhythmic modulation, yet daunted by the coordinating movements of the appendages.
Say what?
He can't dance.
Kimberly, the Pink Ranger, was played by Amy Jo Johnson and successfully portrayed every kind of girl that grinds my nerves.
I don't know, you guys. I mean, the outfits are cool and everything, but my hair gets all tangled up inside the helmets. I don't think I can do it.
They were later joined by Tommy, played by Jason David Frank, who started off as a bad guy, later becoming a good guy as the Green Ranger. I mean the White Ranger. No, wait, Red? Forget it.
Count on me, Zordon. 100%.
The Rangers were all selected by Zordon, a giant floating head stuck in a time warp, and Alpha 5, a tiny robot stuck with annoying programming.
What do we do?
I love Zordon and Alpha's almost derogatory description of the kind of people they were looking for to save the world.
Teleport to us 5 overbearing and over-emotional humans.
No, not that, not teenagers.
They zap the teenagers to their remote, super-secret headquarters, which happens to be in Southern California, just where the 5 kids all happen to be, who all happen to already be friends with one another, and are already all wearing their predetermined colors, and they're given the medallions relating to ancient extinct animals, giving them the power to transform. When just being Power Rangers wasn't enough, their special individual weapons even combined to create an even bigger weapon designed to create one big stream of massive damage. And when the bad guys got too big to handle alone, they called their giant animal Zords for backup, even going so far as to combine them together, creating the Megazord, and finish the battle for good. All of this was in a 3-season struggle to keep Rita Repulsa and her minions from conquering the Earth. I never found that she had a particularly good reason for wanting to destroy the Earth, but then what evil supervillain does need a good reason? After humans released her from her prison on the moon, she decides that Earth just has to go. With her followers Goldar, Squat, Babu, Finsters, and others, she usually accomplishes little more than a little collateral damage and a big annoying headache. Needless to say, the whole thing was a smash hit with the school-age kid crowd. It got a whole new generation interested in martial arts, for all the wrong reasons. A VHS tape was even released called Power Rangers Karate Club, hosted by Green Ranger Jason David Frank, teaching basic karate techniques and his self-created Green Ranger kata to school-aged children. Great idea, Saban. You watch it all now and you think, man, the writing really was pretty piss poor. But of course it wasn't aimed at you as an adult, it was aimed at you as a kid. But honestly, you don't even have to make jokes for how terrible the writing is. Most of the time it's almost like it's mocking itself.
Let's show him some karate moves, Skull!
You guys should definitely join Jason's karate class.
Or take, for instance, this scene where Rita instructs Finster to create a certain monster.
Oh, yes, my queen. I trained him myself. First, he'll use his magic power to turn the Power Rangers one by one into cardboard cutouts. Then he'll transform into a horrible pinoctopus and terrorize the city. Excellent!
Whose thought process works this way? Who plans something that ridiculously elaborate, so elaborate that it can't possibly function? In fact, in the entire episode, only one person is turned into a cardboard cutout, so the power was indeed ridiculously useless. Not to mention that the problem of the cardboard child was solved simply by dunking water on her. Right, because everyone knows that when you're dehydrated, you turn into cardboard. Well, time goes on, Rangers change, movies are made, new villains are introduced, and you as the viewer are starting to get a little bit older and a little bit smarter. You start to wonder about things like, why is there a noticeable difference in quality between the footage of the kids in the halls of Angel Grove High and the footage of the Power Rangers kicking butt? Why does Rita Repulsa's mouth never quite match what she's saying? Why is it that later on, not only do her lips do actually match what she's saying, but the actress and film quality she's been shot on is entirely different? Why are the kids of Angel Grove, or any of the innocent bystanders, never actually seen with the villains who captured them? Well, there's a good reason for that. Here, I'll let the cast of Power Rangers try and explain this one to you.
The look and feel of the original Power Ranger superheroes started in Japan on a popular program called Go Rangers.
Well, no, that isn't exactly true. It is true that Himitsu Sentai Go Ranger was the original Ranger series and paved the way for future Super Sentai TV shows. Go Ranger was created by Shotaro Ishinomori, well known for other tokusatsu, or special effects shows, such as the long-running Kamen Rider series. But Go Ranger is pretty old in comparison to Power Rangers, first airing on Japanese TV in 1977. Since Go Ranger, there have been a grand total of 33 different Ranger teams to date. Now, what Mighty Morphin Power Rangers originally borrowed their footage from was not Go Ranger, but instead was the 16th in the line of Sentai shows known as Kyoryu Sentai Zyuranger, originally airing in 1992. And wouldn't you know it, it's almost nothing like what we did with our Power Rangers. For one, the heroes certainly aren't fighting teenagers with attitude. Each one of the characters is a member of a different tribe related to a different ancient animal, all locked away for hundreds of millions of years. Red Ranger Geki, Black Ranger Goshi, Blue Ranger Dan, Pink Ranger Mei, and Yellow Ranger Boy. That's right, Yellow is not a girl, but a boy, and his name was Boy. That's one big oversight. When the evil witch Bandora, that's right, Bandora, not Rita, is released from her ancient prison on the planet Nemesis, not the moon, it's up to the great wise wizard Barza, not Zordon and Alpha 5, to summon our superhero squad. The 5 warriors were sealed away behind stone doors for hundreds of millions of years that could only be opened using special magical keys. Once summoned, it's up to these warrior princes and princesses to save the world from certain destruction. From there, you wouldn't think there'd be that much of a difference between the two shows, but the differences are incredibly vast, making it really hard to say which one is truly better or worse than the other. In Zyuranger, Bandora and the rest of her team frequently come up with creative Dora monsters with clever, intricate plans to tear the world apart, whereas Power Rangers rips out all that extra fluff and has the teenagers performing some sad high school-related task, only to be suddenly interrupted by a monster with no further warning or backstory. As an example, one episode of Zyuranger features a Sphinx monster asking children puzzling riddles. You know, kind of like the actual legend of the Sphinx. If the child gets it wrong, he's blown away, stuffed inside a tree, and left to panic at the thought that some deforesters were going to unwittingly chop them down and kill them. The Zyurangers had to cleverly trick the Sphinx into giving them a riddle that told them where the Sphinx's weak spot was. In Power Rangers, however, this episode had far more pressing matters to attend to. Jason is trying to obtain the local bench pressing record of 1,010 presses. At what weight, I have no idea. But he's always interrupted by the counter losing count or Kimberly popping gum in Zach's face. Oh no! Then they have to deal with some after-school bullies. What a bummer! But then suddenly a Sphinx monster is sent down and separates Jason from his friends. But luckily his friends show up again anyway, and then they save the day together. And just in time, because this gives them enough time to get back to Angel Grove High and let Jason finish his 1,010 bench presses. Hooray! High fives for everybody! Zyuranger's stories seem far more serious and focused than Power Rangers is, and I'll let you determine whether that's a good or a bad thing. For example, when the Zyurangers received their new awesome weapons, they had to go through amazingly difficult trials in order to be worthy of obtaining them. Trials that could possibly get them killed. In Power Rangers, however, Zordon simply handed the weapons over during their time of need, when they weren't too busy making fools out of Bulk and Skull. And you know, on top of that, Zyurangers have no rule of keeping their identities secret or anything silly like that. They run around in their fancy tribal clothes in modern Tokyo as though it doesn't matter. The Power Rangers, however, are instructed by Zordon to keep their identities secret, despite always wearing color-coordinated clothing and wrist communicators that beep the Power Rangers theme song in public. And despite the fact that they have secret identities, Rita knows each Ranger by face and name, so it would seemingly make the secret identity rule null and void, but for some reason it doesn't. The story behind the Green Ranger in Zyuranger is actually pretty awesome. There's a lot of backstory there, but basically what it all amounts to is that Geki, the Red Ranger, and Burai, the Green Ranger, are brothers. When Burai is finally able to stop blaming Geki for the death of their father, he temporarily joins the Rangers. Yep, only temporarily, because he eventually dies. He doesn't go to another dimension, he doesn't get resurrected, and he most certainly doesn't go on to become the White Ranger. He dies. Speaking of the White Ranger, actually, there is no White Ranger in Zyuranger. Anytime you ever saw the White Ranger on camera in Power Rangers, it was either the Americans all standing together in their suits, or it was footage taken from a completely different Ranger series, the 17th Super Sentai show called Die Ranger. What's awesome is that the White Ranger in Die Ranger is actually a little school-aged kid who got lucky when he pulled a talking sword from a stone, very King Arthur-esque, and whenever he becomes the White Ranger, his body transforms into that of an adult, but his voice remains that of a child. Too bad we didn't get that. What grade school kid didn't want to be a Power Ranger? But, speaking of Die Ranger, the Zords around that time in Season 2 of Power Rangers were all mashed in from Die Ranger also, proving that continuity doesn't matter. I mean, we were the ones who invented continuity between Ranger series. In Japan, each of the Sentai programs is their own individual entity. I can't imagine the work it took Saban to take multiple shows that have nothing to do with each other and try to make them have everything to do with each other. That's more trouble than it's worth. But they didn't stop there. By the third season, Saban decided it was necessary to keep the same continuity but give the Rangers new Zords. So again, they mashed in footage from yet another TV series, Ninja Sentai Kaku Ranger. By the end of Power Rangers Season 3, they even attempted to continue the continuity into a whole new TV series, Power Rangers Zeo. This process continued for years, causing tons of further uncomfortable continuity headaches, all the way until at least Power Rangers in Space, and even after that, there's still small pieces of continuity that they continued to try to force into uncomfortable places. Like I mentioned before, it's really quite a lot of work to make multiple TV shows into one TV show. Far more difficult than simply translating the program and giving it to your audience. Saban, and now Disney, went through all the effort to not only kinda sorta translate a popular Japanese program, but remove anything Japanese about it, recreate costumes for putties, monsters, rangers, even Rita Repulsa herself. Hell, Lord Zed wasn't even part of any of the Sentai programs. He was a character that Saban created themselves. Considering the Power Rangers story, outside of piloting mechs and fighting monsters, it had absolutely zilch to do with the original source material, and at that point, if they were going to do that much work, they really should have created their own TV show entirely from scratch. But Power Rangers was such a toy-shoving, money-farming success from Toei and Bandai that I think the producers in both America and Japan knew that this could only serve to make them both money. But which is really better? Power Rangers? Zeo Ranger? I guess that's all based on your own personal preference. It's almost as if they aren't the same TV shows at all, so it's like comparing apples to bananas in that sense. Zeo Ranger may come off as being overly serious and too cheesy for some audiences, especially in America, but I think there's something charming about it. Power Rangers, I think, gave kids a hero who was just a little bit older than them, someone they could look up to, someone they felt they could become. American kids might have been able to identify with the fighting teenagers with attitude just a little bit more. But sometimes the writing just blows my mind. What a piece of work! But hey, to each his own. I think my personal preference as an adult has leaned toward the source material rather than the popular hack job, but that's just me. I think if Power Rangers continues on, I'd still like to see kids watching it wanting to grow up and be a ranger. As of this video, there are no plans to bring further Super Sentai series over to the States in any format other than toys. I guess it'd be kind of hard for them to remove the Japanese kanji from the faces of the helmets for our English-speaking audiences, huh? But hopefully this does not mean that our window into the world of Sentai is lost and gone forever. If there is ever money to be made, and so long as Disney holds the license to the name Power Rangers, I can just about guarantee that there is still hope for another Rangers series.